Hi there, Roy Stone here with Jamstone Magic, and I'd like to take just a moment and share with you one of our newest products, Hippity Hop Astronauts, or as I like to call them, the Great Space Race. Now we have here two large 16-inch rocket ships, and inside each rocket ship are our astronauts. We have a blue astronaut here, and we have a red astronaut here. Now, do you know who the first men to make it into space were? Yuri Gagarin and John Glenn. Yuri Gagarin was a Russian, and John Glenn was an American. And these two men were part of what's called the Great Space Race. The Great Space Race was all about seeing who could do the first things in space. Would it be the Americans or would it be the Russians? Well, the Russians sent up the very first satellite. The Russians sent up a satellite about the size of a basketball, had all these antennas sticking on it, and it floated out in space, and it frightened the Americans. It didn't frighten them because it was just a satellite. It frightened the Americans because Russia had beaten America into space. Well, America said that's not going to do, so they built a bigger rocket. This time the Americans said, we're going to be first, and they sent up the very first camera into space. They had beaten the Russians by sending up a camera and taking the world's largest selfie. It was a selfie so big it had everybody in it. It was a picture of the Earth from space. Well, the Russians were like, well, that's no good. We'll do something even better. So the Russians built another rocket ship. And in this rocket ship, instead of a satellite, instead of a camera, the Russians sent up a monkey. Not just any monkey, but a monkey by the name of Ham. Now, what a silly name is Ham for a monkey. Ham's not a name for a monkey. Ham's the name of a sandwich. Monkey ought to have a name like Banana Pudding. Then we could say, the Russians put banana pudding into space. Well, the Americans didn't like that either, so they said, we're going to do something as well. We're going to be the first ones to build a rocket ship big enough to go to the moon. So we'll build a new rocket ship. The Americans built a bigger rocket ship, and this time their rocket ship was going to take them to the moon. And the Russians were like, no, we'll build a bigger rocket ship. So they built a bigger rocket ship, and the race was on to see who was going to make it to the moon. Would it be the Russians? Would it be the Americans? Who would get there first? Well, it turns out the Americans got there first, and they planted their flag, and they finally won the space race by being the first ones to get to the moon. But guess what? It turns out that when they got to the moon, they found out that they weren't the first ones there. Matter of fact, the aliens had been there already and had been eating all the green cheese just for themselves. That's the Great Space Race. Check out jamstonemagic.com. Get yours today.